will not. Because when this all happens, like in this case, the blame squarely lies on the government of Kenya, not on any other person. You can see the religious people, they have gone back to their places. They occasionally talk once in a while, and even in that talk, they are trying to defend their space. The responsibility, the buck stops with the government of Kenya, and for good reasons. I hope you'll be able to talk to the judiciary. I really hope so. These are two arms of government, but even the executive and parliament are two arms of government, and we are talking. I don't think there is an arm of government that cannot talk, because they don't have their own country. We all share one country. If there is insecurity, everybody will be hurt. Even a judge can get hurt. Even a judge is exposed to crime. So I hope you'll talk to the judiciary, because we have issues there, and we would want to respect them as our anchors of legalism and constitutionalism. But there are some we need to engage with them. Number 6, I have answered it about the regulation again. I have answered it. Number 7 is any other information. And since I've talked for long, Chair, I don't have any other information unless it is particularly requested for through the intervention of members. I want to thank you. I want to promise my availability and the support and cooperation to this committee to do its work, and I will not withhold any information that can assist you to make recommendations that can help our country. I thank you, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Cabinet Secretary. Now we are going to interact with you and your report. Honorable members have several issues. They would seek clarification. That I'll have the first bite of the cherry. I wanted to know from you, at some point in your presentation, you said that curiously, I use that word curiously, the suspect Mackenzie was released on a cash bail after incarceration for 1 week. And then you went on to say that he was already charged under the Prevention of Terrorism Act. And I think how I'm getting you is that they should have held him because there is a provision for that there. The question I want to ask is that Prevention of Terrorism Act seems to be a little different, but you can tell me your thinking from what we are dealing with here, because we are dealing with religious extremism and religious indoctrination that is giving us extremely bad results. What I wanted to know from you, would you be with us if we recommend in this report that a new genre of criminal liability or criminal liability around religious activity be generated or be developed? Should we have special crimes against bad religious activities, or do you think that the Prevention of Terrorism Act is already covering, or would you recommend any amendments to that act in terms of your way forward, or what you think this committee should recommend. I wanted to hear you on that. Should we create new criminal law around that? And then you can answer that, and then we'll open up to others. Oh, sorry. Before that, I don't know why, because I've talked to him, I'm thinking that he's here already, but my apologies, Senator. Honorable Senator Eddie Gisheru has been unwell. He had an accident. So when I saw him on the whatever, I thought he would be there, but he had said he would try to come, and I'm so glad to see you, Senator. So may I give you the floor so you put yourself on record?
Thank you, Chair, and honorable members for your dedication and the work you've been doing. I know I've been interacting with you online, and I'm happy about the work you've been doing. And my name is Eddie Gisheru Okech, Senator for Migori County, and a member of this committee. And I'm glad to see you back again, Bona CS. And I think I got to listen to nearly half of your presentation, and I'm inspired and looking forward to interact more through the interrogation we're going to have on the same responses. Thank you, Chair.
CS, just allow Senator Cheptumo to make an inquiry so that you can take the two together.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for allowing me, because I need to go and chair my committee. Chair, let me also join my colleagues in appreciating the CS for the very, very comprehensive presentation in response to the issues raised by this committee. This Mackenzie is indeed a very interesting Kenyan, because in those 3 years, he bricked actually 5 acts of parliament: the Children's Act, the Education Act, Prevention of Terrorism Act, the Penal Code, and Films and Stage Play Act. I think this is one of the Kenyans that should be recorded as having been able to bridge within a short time so many laws of our country. But that is why we have a problem in Shakahola, Buenos Aires. Now, I agree with you that Mackenzie should not have been released under Section 210 of CPC. It should have been actually Section 87. But that is the failure of the prosecution, because there was no objection by the prosecution, even to object to the release of Mackenzie instead of being detained, pursuant to the provisions of the Prevention of Terrorism Act, as said by a member here. So, Chair, this is where we have a problem, that those people in charge of the security in that area, so the office of the public prosecution is already on the line here. So the officer in charge, the prosecutor, already from where I sit, I now don't know whether this will be your witness or will be an accused person, but already, Chair, you see why we're insisting of seeing these people, so that this prosecutor should be able to tell this committee why he did not do what he was supposed to do. But that is something already directed, so we will deal with it when we reach there. So, what is your view on that, Chair? Do you think this, and I think actually you have already answered that question, so that is an observation I've made. But the last one now is, I want to pick your mind on what do you think should be the policy on land ownership? Because Shakahola and that land around there was 100,000 acres owned by a company. 50,000 was sold. leaving a balance of 50,000 acres. And in our discussions yesterday, Buenos Aires, through our chair, we made a very big observation that the vastness of that area not being developed and only by individual created a very conducive environment for these activities to be done by Mackenzie and so on. What is your thinking on that? Because the absentee landowners, whom we know and those whom we don't know, in a way tend to create an environment. In Baringo, for example, and other areas where you keep on fighting us, helping us to fight the criminal areas. These fellows live in those bushes. In some counties, these are land owned by people. I want to pick your mind on that issue of what should be our policy as a country in terms of people owning a lot of land which is not being utilized and creating environment for criminals like the one which happened in Shakahola. Your presentation was so exhaustive that I may not need to give more questions. I still want to give you our support as a committee, and we hope that you talked of 4 things where you curtail freedoms of people: safety, morality, security. And the 4th one was what? Order. And I think, Chair, those are areas which this committee will be able to really utilize as we come up with our report. Because you realize the religious leaders are really completely objecting to the issue of government regulating charges. So I think we have a very strong foundation based on the representation by the PS. So, Chair, I will be leaving shortly to chair my committee, but I want to appreciate the CS.
CS, you have the floor.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, and thank you, distinguished Senator from Baringo County. It's also my professional senior, actually both of you. Chair, starting with your inquiry. Yes, curiously, suspect Mackenzie was released under Section 210 without even being put on his defense. Even if he had been charged with a very serious offense under the Prevention of Terrorism Act, that is why we are saying curiously. As you look at law reform, Chair, part of our ability to control this space of dangerous crimes, wherever they come from, dangerous crimes coming from terrorists, from bandits, from drug traffickers, and those who meddle with the public health and safety through selling drugs and psychotropic substances, whether the dangers are coming from religious extremists and fundamentalists like your committee is handling, we must look at what else that is not in the available Kenyan and international laws that responds particularly to this issue of religious extremism and dangerous doctrinal impartation of our populations. And now recommend either through a miscellaneous legal amendments of miscellaneous laws, the Penal Code, the Prevention of Terrorism Act, the Prevention of Genocide Act of 2008, and so forth. You can have a miscellaneous statute law amendment on all those laws, including the Criminal Procedure Code, Count 75. that is one way, so that whatever is unique about religious extremism that you pick from this inquiry can be processed through a statute law miscellaneous. And that will bring on board also the regulatory bodies like the Registrar of Societies and so forth and so on. And in that endeavor, we must, as a country, if we have to save the future, because we have already lost the present. And I am saying we have lost the present, Chair, because losing hundreds of people is a great loss to the country. Even lose one person who is lost to a criminal is a big loss to a country. I know of countries that even go to war with other countries because of the loss of one soldier. But I think this country, we have, I don't know what has happened, we look at some of these things as natural. You know, people have died, we're just excavating every day and counting bodies of children and women and men. And it's as if it should be happening. So we must escalate these criminals who are hiding in religious spaces and package them to where the most dangerous criminals are kept in our laws and under international law. And this issue of people being released on cash bail when they are being suspected or they are being processed of very serious crimes, we have to look at it. I'm now handling a request. Kenya is handling a request now on the repatriation of someone who has been in a foreign country for the last 20 years under detention in I can even name the country, the United States of America, one of the most, the people say is one of the most democratic countries in the world. A Kenyan national who has been under investigation for 20 years. 20 years, since 2003, for being suspected of terrorism. And after 20 years, they have cleared him. I would rather we take precaution and save the society than to be too liberal. And then our work is to bury people's children, spouses, relatives, as if it's a casual thing. So when we do the statute, as if you find that an approach, the punishment which must accompany it, and also the procedural rigor attached to the dangerous crimes or people suspected of dangerous crimes in the religious space and those who are doing indoctrination. That is my view. To respond to, you also asked whether we should have a new genre of offenses. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe because in the process of this inquiry, you're going to discover things we may not be aware of, because this is a special moment and this has not happened before. And by the way, Chair, since Kenya's independence, this is the worst security breach in the history of our country. This is the greatest attack on our national security in Kenya's existence. It's that serious. So, as you process this, because it's a unique moment that you're talking to so many people, you might want to create a new genre. But I submit that we have enough laws. We just need to enforce them. This country, Article 2.5 of the Constitution says that all international treaties and conventions to which Kenya is a party are part of the laws of Kenya. So we enforce international law in our courts effortlessly. Part of the laws includes the laws on terror, the prevention of terror, which are international treaties we have signed, including the 1999 convention, UN Convention on the prevention and suppression of terrorism. part of the law of Kenya. Kenya is also a state party to the United Nations Convention on the Prevention and Punishment of the Crime of Genocide. Looking at all the facts in the Mackenzie matter, genocide is all the 4 ingredients of genocide can be proved, even when you are closing your eyes. Now, the Genocide Convention, as it is called, of 1948, is part of our law. So why bring another law? You just enforce it because of Article 2.5 of the Constitution that enables our judges to apply that convention, which treats those crimes in that manner. But I don't rule out new ideas that you will capture as you talk to people. Finally, on what my senior, the distinguished Senator for Baringo, has asked, I agree, he should have at least the facts. He should have assisted those who are making decisions to make sure that at least this person is put on defense. So part of the problem, weak attention by the ODPP on some of these very serious threats to national security, these serious crimes. But also the judicial part is an important thing. I note also with surprise, unless I am informed otherwise, that no appeal was ever lodged against the acquittal. Because if he was acquitted by the magistrate Malindi under Section 210, a prosecutor should have gone to the High Court and appealed against that acquittal. It has never been done. Let me put it this way, Chair. We are staring at a huge crisis as a country until when we realize that we all live freely, work in this country because it is safe and secure to do so. And put security where it belongs. Security first. All these other things, you can transform the economy, you can do many other infrastructural development, but a country can come tumbling down once because of security issues. And I think we have not reached there. And finally, the issue of land ownership. I believe, Chair, if this committee will have, in its wisdom, decided to recommend legal reforms, whether through standalone statutes or through statute law amendment bill, in line of what the distinguished Senator for Baringo has suggested, which I support, owners of land must be visited with vicarious liability. It is an old principle. For the lawyers in the House, the rule in Reynolds versus Fletcher must apply to owners of land. You are an owner of some bush, some land somewhere. It is your responsibility to make sure, because it's private property, and you know they are, because again of freedoms, even security agencies are limited in what they can do in your space, in your house. They must have a reasonable reason. They must even get a search warrant sometimes because of the right to privacy. So this is your private land. We will not violate it, but you must also take responsibility for what is happening there. It cannot be a hideout for dangerous criminals, and then you come waving title deeds and telling us this is your private space. It is your private so long as the law and order is established and respected there. So part of the amendments could even come through the penal code, but also through even the land laws. There is nothing wrong with the land laws even having a bit of responsibility, even visiting liability on landowners, because it's a huge problem. I agree with Senator Cheptumo, and perhaps that is something the committee should consider as part of the legal reforms for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Eddie wants to take the floor, but as he takes the floor, I am feeling the way your presentation is on the office of the ODPP. So as you're answering Senator Eddie's, you probably want to tell us, initially, as you and me know, and all the lawyers, all prosecutions and prosecutorial power was vested in the office of the Attorney General. It may be for good reason that they were also briefed in other things like national security. In this one, I feel the mood of the presentation was that there was a bungling in terms of the application of the law in the office of the ODPP. So I wanted you, as you're answering Senator here, to tell us, would you be comfortable, or is it your recommendation that we should have a return to prosecutions on issues only regarding public security, mass public security, be returned back to the Attorney General? Is that your thinking? Would it be a better way to work, and then we leave the ODPP with the normal prosecutions, but when it comes to huge public security issues, that prosecutorial power should go back to the Attorney General as it was in the olden times? Just think about it as Senator Eddie puts his question.
Thank you, Chair. And also thank you, CS, for a very elaborate presentation. Let me take this opportunity also as a member of this committee, having visited Shakahola with the team under the leadership of our chair. And I must say that in the circumstances we find ourselves in as a nation, I must commend you for the job you have continued to do. It is indeed commendable given the circumstances and the nuances that you find yourself in. I just wanted to interrogate just 3 quick thoughts in the presentation that you've given us here, just to help us when we'll be at some point in the course of this exercise that we have been given by the Senate. We'll be trying to do our reports. Perhaps you could help us understand these 3 thoughts. And the thoughts are expressly so indicated in point number 3, point number 5, and point number 6. So I'll start with point number 3. The quest that we had here was the reasons it took too long for security agencies to act on the complaints raised by locals. Perhaps the thought that I want to interrogate here, CS, whether in our current security infrastructure or going forward, I like the word that you use, that we have lost the present but we must now save the future. What is the status of our disaster readiness and preparedness with regards to this nature of crimes? Because I don't think that the issue raised by any persons who find themselves in this situation, whether locals or alarms from other different quarters, the response will be limited to just arrest and prosecution. That can sometimes take long, and sometimes it defines why we have had such a long time even saving people who we could have saved if we had a proper strategy in terms of readiness and preparedness in terms of response. So that's something I would want to know with regards to this, given and put into mind that you're still trying to save some people who have ran from where they were initially, going deeper into deeper forests. So that would be one. Number 2 will be on point 5. We had a quest here on the proposals for preventing religious organizations from engaging in extreme indoctrination of their followers, including radicalization and spiritual and financial exploitation. And your response, or rather your guidance, has been very much church-centric, if I may use that word, for lack of a better word. I see your proposals here are very much church-centric, you know, how we should have churches, perhaps evangelistics, being in fellowships, you know, individual ownership of churches should be banned throughout the country. All other churches must be required to veil their doctrines, etc., etc. Is this an assessment that other religious organizations are not at risk? And would we be out of your recommendation if perhaps we could modify these recommendations to read religious leaders? Because it would be my view that the same extremism, whether the danger is with us now or could perhaps be in the future, could just as well be found in other religious organizations or religious societies. That includes Muslims, includes Baha'i faith, includes Hindus, includes pagans. Like, there are many of them, that some of them have got these also extremist, you know, doctrines that perhaps might not have led us to this kind of security situation. But in your spirit of saving the future, would it be okay for this committee to take your responses here in context of larger religious organizations in the society? And lastly, CS, we had a question here on proposal regarding a regulatory framework to govern religious organizations. And your response was that perhaps the Presidential Task Force on the review of the land of the legal and regulatory framework governing religious organizations would perhaps be best placed to give us an insight in this. Indeed, I don't dispute that, but it's my view that perhaps this particular body will be able to contribute, but not be able to give us the what I'll call holistic view with regards to this framework. And I think that perhaps I wanted to interrogate this further in the context of what I would call in law deterrence, because your proposals have been mostly towards prevention. And I know that prevention and deterrence seem to be close, but on a legal framework basis, they're actually separate. So I'll give you, for instance, if you have put in place a number of precautionary strategies to make sure that we cannot face this kind of problems again. For instance, what you proposed here, like having religious organizations, having doctrines and registered with the Research Society, or even having relevant certificates, that would be amazing prevention mechanisms. But deterrent could perhaps go to what the chair was asking. What, for instance, should be the commensurate punishment to somebody like Mackenzie, who, if found liable, what could be the commensurate punishment that if anybody else was to see that this is the punishment this person has gotten for doing this kind of behavior legally, then they will be deterred, prevention mechanisms notwithstanding. I would want to see your ideas on that. Thank you so much, Chair, and thank you, CS.
CS, there's a request that you take at least one round of questions. So just take notes.
Can I request? I'll try to be brief. I would rather answer one after the other, so that the danger is that if there are too many, something will get
lost. Okay, then take those. Take those.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for accommodating me, Chair and members. The logic of removing the powers of public prosecutor from the Attorney General of the Republic is a logic which is justifiable and which is based on international best practice in many jurisdictions of the world. It will be a clawback of our democracy to again return the powers of the public prosecutor to the Attorney General of the Republic, in my humble view. This is why. The Attorney General is the chief legal advisor of government. The work of the Attorney General is to advise government agencies so that they conduct their activities within the law. The public prosecutor has a unique role of ensuring that the criminal justice is realized in the country. It's a completely different role. It will be a clawback on our democracy to try and lump the powers of the chief legal government advisor with those of the public prosecutor together. First of all, it's not neat. Already, even whatever is left of the Attorney General, that mandate is overwhelming on the state law office. You can imagine the number of legal advisories by everyone in every ministry, department, agency across the Kenya on a daily basis. They are doing a contract here, a tender here, an administrative issue here. It's overwhelming. We've just passed in cabinet recently. I think it will come before the Houses of Parliament. Position on decentralization of the office of the Attorney General. We can't deliver. Sometimes we blame institutions, yet the capacity has been held back. So in a nutshell, it will be wrong doctrine to claw back on the advancement of the 2010 Constitution of separating the Chief Legal Advisor's office, who is the Attorney General, with the office of the Public Prosecutor. Initially they were together. So already even what is left is overwhelming. The solution for the ODPP is again, other than the usual issues about capacity and more personnel and more resources, which is the soul of every ministry, every department across government, not just in Kenya, in all countries. It's about how we need more capacity, we need more resources, and I'm not underestimating the role of resources and capacity in delivery of services. But this is my view. If I were the public prosecutor of Kenya, if I were the Attorney General of Kenya, let's give those two examples because they are the ones which have been raised on the floor here. There are certain matters, because of their gravity, those matters, with or without capacity and resources and all the other things that are lacking, that must be handled seriously, carefully, and at the highest level. I'll give you an example. Why we've been losing so many cases is because you have matters like this, of this type, the Mackenzie type of matters. You'll see, and I've nothing against the younger advocates and the younger, some of the young advocates are very good people, including prosecutors. But there are some things that cannot be processed in any other way. You're a legal professional, and you know the meaning of seniority in the legal profession, even in terms of persuasion of the judiciary. You know what it means. And there are some things which you cannot cover them up. The reason why we have senior counsel in the bar is because they hold a certain card that only a senior counsel holds that card. The judge is forced to be patient, and even when the judge is uncomfortable, to be respectful. The senior counsel, to make their cases, they can even address the court for hours. which a young advocate who was admitted last night will even be dismissed before they greet the judge, especially if the judge has woken up with, maybe they are stressed, and they are also human beings. And there are things which only senior counsel, even within the senior counsel, there is the order of seniority. There are some lawyers who get away with anything. I remember during my practice days, there is one of our colleagues who passed on, the oldest advocate who, at that time, and he would come to court late, 30 minutes late, and sit down. Of course, the other matters will be put aside and his matter will be called, and he wakes up and says, "Oh, Judge, I'm sorry, I am late because I was attending my wife's birthday." And because the judge is the grand student of this fellow, there is nothing he can do. What am I saying with regard to ODPP, Chair? I believe matters like this must be prosecuted by the Director of Public Prosecution in person. Even in civil litigation, there are matters which I would expect that the Attorney General of the Republic must prosecute them in person, because they are lawyers. That way, you are, at least even in terms of optics, the country and the justice system, even the judiciary, which is dispensing justice, is aware this is how seriously we are taking this matter. You send a young lawyer to handle a complex matter of monumental implications on our justice and security system. Some young lawyers there, this is their first, they have not even done 5 years. How do you expect to win that case? So the improvement must be within existing institutions. The ODPP is the right structure, is the right institution. But I'm afraid, even as much as the legitimate grievances on how we could improve service delivery, I am not persuaded at the moment as a country, and I'm not blaming any particular state official. We are not taking matters seriously. This country, Chair, has this unfortunate culture of people in high positions enjoying the privileges of office and not taking up the responsibilities of that office. And it's across board. There are so many big men and women in this country, and they are so big, some matters, they think all those are small matters, they only appear when it's necessary. I would argue, and I don't know whether that should be part of the prosecution policy of the country. I hope once we review the prosecution policy of the country, it will pass through the Houses of Parliament and it will be debated. Certain matters must be handled directly and personally by the Director of Public Prosecutions in person. There is seniority, there is clout, there is experience, there is leverage, so you will not lose them. But returning matters to the AG will even complicate the matter, because it's already swamped with a lot of work in giving routine advisory to government and also the civil litigation side. Then Senator Okech asked about our preparedness. I think our problem is not about preparedness. Our problem is elsewhere. It's about the efficacy of our institutions across the board. And the problem is, again, our lack of adequate institutional patriotism to know that every institution plays a part in our society, in our democracy, and they must deliver. There is a bit of a gap in that area, and I could try to read the mind of the distinguished senator from Migori. And we are working on them, especially the equipment for search and rescue. And we have already made progress. And the challenge has not been with equipment. And I believe more or less we have exhausted all the people that we would have saved at the moment, unless there are rare cases. We've been able to complete that process, unless there are rare cases which might emerge. The slow nature of the recovery of bodies is what I explained. It's a scientific process. It's governed by international protocols. And the way criminals of this nature operate, because it's organized crime, they don't just bury people. Part of the work is to conceal the graves. We are not just looking for places where looks like it was dug up. No. We are looking everywhere. What we've done in the last 2 weeks, we have opened security roads. Every 100 acres has a security road around it, out of the 800 acres. And the rest of the ranch, every 500 acres is a security road around it, so that we can now do the search for graves and identification of graves meter by meter, centimeter by centimeter, millimeter by millimeter. And it's a very, very slow process. Some of the graves we have discovered, this crook had grown some crops on top of the graves. So you find some kunde, some vegetables growing on a mass grave, just to cover up. Others, there are structures that looks like a house, inside is a grave. Others in very unlikely places. So that will take a bit of time. Deterrence, I agree with Senator Okech. And that's why I said it's one thing to bring the crimes, the elements of the crime, but this must be connected with the procedural tightening of the process. To once you're suspected of certain crime, the procedure is different. And then now we strengthen our institutions so that that process is not abused to punish people. That's how other countries have made some progress in this area have done. We make it impossible for them, the procedure to be abused, so that if you disagree with somebody, either because of politics or whatever differences, you go and put them on a track for suspicion of terrorism, so that they are kept, they are treated this differently for many years, abuse of the process. So I would expect, therefore, procedurals, different procedural tracks for these serious crimes, including the kind of punishment that comes with it to deter future people. I also agree with the distinguished senator for Migori on the question of, yes, this mandate is about Shakahola, but I've seen your terms of reference, Chair, also include general terrain, the general terrain of radicalization, indoctrination by religious groups. So if I've seen your mandate, I think it's general. What has not come out, and I agree with the senator from Migori, is that we must now remove ourselves at some point from the specific suspect and look at this issue as one space called the religious space, and where all these things operate. And I've been very careful all the time to say churches, mosques, temples, houses of worship of whatever nature, including people who worship elsewhere, and those who do not believe in God, because there are those who say they are atheists, but I believe that the lack of faith is also a faith, that you don't believe in God. That is a faith. So they should be cornered there also, because they cannot say, oh, as we are not religious organizations, but they lack faith in God. So they believe there is no God. So that is a faith. So nobody should be left out of your ambit. Even those who worship Satan, or others who worship whatever they worship, the ancestors. Others don't worship anything. They believe in not worshiping anything. So, Mr. Chairman, nobody, I repeat, nobody should escape your dragnet. You must catch everybody, as suggested by our brother, the senator from Migori. Chair, and just one small item there, that there's a reason why there's too much church-related attention, because of this particular incident that caused all this inquiry emanated from the Christian faith and a particular preacher of the Christian faith. We should not be so obsessed with only that incident and forget that faith as the other faiths involved. But the one thing I wanted to add is that a few years ago we had a similar upsurge of serious crimes globally, perpetuated by perverts of Islamic faith, fundamentalists, people hiding under the Islam religion to kill people. And some of it is still ongoing. This country has suffered a lot, many countries in the world have suffered a lot by people who are causing mayhem and death hiding under the Islamic faith. If you look at the measures we took in the early 2013, especially the Security Laws Amendment Act of 2014, which controversiality it was, by the way, is what has sustained this country. We would have suffered much more harm if we had not passed those amendments act, those are the miscellaneous amendment laws. Now, so my view is that this incident that has been perpetuated by people hiding under the Christian faith, we should now look at the existing laws and see what is new addition to the existing framework. Otherwise, the framework is there, and you can excuse why the focus now is on the Christian faith, because the perpetrator of the triggering crime for the current national inquiry is of the Christian faith. Lastly, why have I said in my response that the presidential task force, in terms of regulatory framework, you know, I was not trying to inhibit anything. In any case, lawmaking is a function of parliament. But you know, I'm a member of the executive. So I'm here to defend what the executive is or hopes will tackle. And because there is already a task force, executive initiated task force led by, which was appointed by the president, we hope for us in the executive, we restrain from making other comments because now there is an executive initiated process until it brings its recommendations, processes them through the appointing authority, and then now we can present them for incorporation into as our ideas as the executive. But the mandate and the role of legislation is entirely with the Houses of Parliament. Thank you.
So, CS, you take notes so that we have one question from Senator Vice Chair and Senator Okoli, Senator Hamida, in that order.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CS. You have really come out very strongly, and we appreciate your presentation. Thank you. Now, Chair, I just want to say on the issue of the discovery of the two bodies for the miners. When we were previously, when we visited, we were informed that those two miners, the discovery, there was a report. We were informed that the grandfather who went to report to the, actually he is the one who discovered those two miners with the help of the NGO. He went to report to police to get assistance, but was in vain. Yeah? So after he reported and repeatedly efforts to report to the police to get assistance, there was no help. So he got the help from the NGO to go and help him to get the bodies of those 2 miners. And after that, which was 20th, 22nd, Mackenzie was taken to court. Yeah? And then in April 19th, that is a period of 1 month, that Okoa Maisha thing came in. How did it take 1 month for the Okoa Maisha to come in? Recovery of the 2 miners and the bodies which were discovered by the headers. Yeah? And even after the reports to the police, but still there was no answer or any help from the police. I know you have come out very strongly to blame the judiciary, which I would agree with you 100%, Chair, and I would agree that we need to interrogate these judiciaries who were here, who were involved in these Mackenzie issues. And I really want to tell you that when I see Mackenzie could not have done all he did as a person, individual himself. He had a very big network. And that is what you need to get to the bottom of, because what matters and what is important is the evidence. You have realized how the judiciary has been behaving. And most likely it is because of lack of very strong evidence. And when if we don't tackle this issue, which you have said, there are still other issues existing in our country on the same nature, then we will never get anywhere. As you talk that we have lost the present, we will still be losing the future. And also, you said that you came strongly to say that there is a legal document between Mackenzie and the people down there on the ground. That document, I don't think it's legal, and that is the document which will be thrown out by the judges if you think that is the document which will help us in court. Because judges would say this is not a legal binding document, we need the legal binding documents, which is the title deed and the owners. And Mackenzie, what I see, he might even be free, because he has come up to say that land is not his. And true to his word, yes, the land is not his. So, unless you have very strong evidence, and that is why we insisted on investigating those officers who were on duty. And I don't understand why they were transferred, because I would rather they were suspended or they were actually taken in for the investigation to start immediately rather than them being transferred. I don't understand how. Now, on the issue of freedom, how free is freedom? Because you really insisted that freedom is enshrined in our constitution, which is very true, freedom of worship. And here you came up with your proposal that individual ownership of churches should be banned throughout the country. Is that freedom? So I think we need to really see how best we can handle this thing, because when we talk of freedom, freedom with no limit, it can cause damage to the country, and it has done already. So when I see us, I really thank you so much, but those are my few remarks. Thank you.
Senator Macaulay. Thank you, Chair. My question directed to Azili. We've had interactions with the non-government organizations that have been involved in this operation. And their perspective is that the police is well funded to do this operation, unlike other departments like the pathologist, prisons department, children's department are well funded, the child care rehabilitation centers, as well as prisons where suspects have been kept. Food and housing is a problem. Would like to know how how is the funding taking place in these categories of teams supporting in this operation in Shakahola? Number two is with the aspect that you've just talked about. We interacted with Muslims, the Hindus, and there is a notion that there has been a skewed approach in dealing with this radicalization matter. There is a belief that we are soft on this Christian approach, unlike the high-handedness, stiff-neckedness that the other Muslim community has gone through in your pursuit to ensure that there is peace, tranquility, and level playing ground. And finally, to pick up from what my good sister said, information in our files indicate that there was a militia that worked with Mackenzie, that under prior media reports that some people had on their skulls or bodies, there are blunt objects that could have been used. So does it assure or justify that Mackenzie had a militia that he used to, protect his operation, conceal the evidence, and therefore, as he speaks or he operates today, he is innocent until proven guilty? Thank you.
Senator Amida.
Thank you, Chair. I hope CS can take one more. It really seems that Pastor Mackenzie had 9 lives, or he still has 9 lives. I mean, according to what you have narrated, all this time, he has escaped the jail. So he's been surviving for quite some time. What I'm getting is, I feel so relieved that I'm getting the assurance from you, CS, that this matter will come, actually, justice shall prevail, and will hold you responsible for that. Seriously, you can imagine the pain of all the families that are going through now, exhuming the bodies of their loved ones. It's really, really painful, and I'm just wondering what kind of pain is Pastor Mackenzie going to feel. Yesterday we had the PS for lands, and of course in our files it showed that the land was actually leased for about 45 years, since 1984, and ending 2029. That's 6 years to go. The land was leased for IDPs, and now, like I said, I wanted you to continue, to narrate, to tell us about the land, because now I was trying to get the connection. But then when we asked for any evidence of the IDPs that were settled, none. There's no evidence of any IDPs. So the land was idle, actually. And for me, looking at it yesterday, it was more or less the conveyor belt of all evil, because the government wasn't there, the security didn't have, no intelligence for the Shakahola Chakama ranch, and that ranch was actually, it was a ranch, and the government paid 100 million for the land, actually, to be leased for the IDPs, and nothing was done. So just wondering, what is the taxpayer? Why would even the government, do such a thing? But then there was no accountability for that land. When you go to Shakahola Chakama ranch, when I see it, there was no kind of real settlement, for Kenyans, nothing, zero. So this, apart from Mackenzie, I'm still wondering also, were there other people who did the same? Are these bodies being exhumed? Are they just for Mackenzie or other, other evil? So anybody would have played, it was a field. You have your own, issues.
We are involving DCI
maybe
in
that was the
investigation of those.
So for actually,
not only this hostel, but even other hostels where the governor had supplied the drugs. Some of the drugs were stolen, and investigations are going on. The office was broken in last night, the CCTV camera was stolen, and the CPU, the desktop machine, they went away with it. It contains the record of the hospital. And we have informed the police, and the police are investigating the matter. We are putting in place a mechanism on how to fill the stocks, because the medicine that are there are not enough to serve for the next 3 months. And the meeting we had today, actually, we agreed on that the stocks that are getting depleted, let them give the budget now so that the procurement process can begin, so that they are purchased within time before we deplete the stocks that are.
Nyumbani na mgonjwa akitegemea hospitali imsaidie, lakini kufika pale anatumwa vitu zenye haistahili kutumwa kwenda kununua kwa chemist. Mtu ukitumwa gloves, na gloves ni ya serikali, unatumwa madawa serikali inaleta pale madawa KEMSA. Sasa sijui hiyo KEMSA kuna shimo mahali ambayo madawa inatokea pale chini, ikienda hatuwezi tukaelewa.
Hospitali yenyewe kwana ya general yenyewe haina security yoyote. Madawa zinakuja, malori zinaingia hapa, kama sisi tuko hapa watu wa bodaboda tunaiona. Hata sisi wenyewe tunaenda kutoa madawa kwa hizo malori tukiweka hapo. Wiki mbili sasa nimekuwa na mtoto mgonjwa. Next week na last week nimekuwa na mtoto mgonjwa, nimeenda hapo kushughulikia huyo mtoto, imekuwa ngumu, ikabidi katoa hapo nikapeleka kwa hospitali nyingine inaitwa Nala. Nilihuzunika moyo yangu mimi sana, na madawa inaingia hapa, tunatoa wanakukomboa hapo, tunaenda kuchukua madawa tukiweka kwa store. Hiyo madawa madaktari wamejifunia yote hapa, wanachukua madawa kipepo kwa vikapu wakienda nazo.
Your email address. In 12 hours, you get a certificate on your phone. A platform which is called Rodito. We are working with a company called Rodito. This platform allows teachers to enroll freely. They post questions on the laptop and on that platform, and these questions will be picked by students who are already in that platform. We have over 840,000 students just waiting for these questions. Teachers have the opportunity of posting these questions on the platform. Anytime a student picks a question, the teacher gets paid 5 bob per question. We are welcoming teachers to come and be with us on 21st, when we are giving out over 200 laptops to women teachers and male teachers who are members of Kewota. These laptops are supposed to support the current government push where they are now already introducing the ICT labs in schools.
I want to urge our leaders, let us embrace anything that is going to help our people back on the ground. I want more resources to come to the ground so that we can change our lives. If I may speak about our girl child, there's a lot that is going on that is not on the limelight. I want to urge you, members of the press, kindly, organizations as such, they help girl child, those children who are not going to school, the mothers who are suffering at home, those are the teachers that have been retired who does not have financial support. These people have come to their rescue